I changed my mind. I think 90 Day Fiancé's Amani Jlassi is actually the problem in the throuple. She's purposely hurting her husband Matt. 90 Day Fiancé's resident throuple Matt and Amani Jlassi, and Hani Eniagira, have struggled with their unconventional relationship, and the more time goes on, the more I'm convinced that Amani is actually the issue. Amani and Matt, from San Diego, had been together for 10 years when they decided to bring in a third partner, Eni, whom they met on vacation in Mexico. Matt, Amani, and Eni had been in a throuple for about a year before cameras began following their story on 90 Day Fiancé Season 11. They are the first throuple to be featured on the series. 90 Day Fiancé has exposed audiences to many types of relationships, some more traditional, and some less so. Matt, Amani, and Eni's relationship definitely qualifies as non-traditional. Eni lives in Tijuana, which is just a short distance from San Diego, but in an entirely different country. The only way to bring Eni to the US is for Matt and Amani to get legally divorced, so one can marry Eni and bring her over on a K-1 visa. If traditional relationships are complicated, polyamorous ones can be extra complicated. The individuals involved need to have clear rules and firm boundaries, which Matt, Amani, and Eni failed to set before their Mexican vacation. Early in the trip, Amani discovered that Matt and Eni had been intimate without her. She'd gone to bed, and the two were physical, thinking there wouldn't be any issues, since they were all together on the trip. Amani became jealous of Matt and Eni's intimate experience because she wasn't involved in it, and she wasn't aware of it. She didn't give them permission, which is apparently something important to Amani. I would think that this is something they would have discussed by now, but they hadn't. I would think that if someone were going to take part in a throuple, they would know whether they were the jealous type or not. I have a theory that Amani is secretly competitive with Matt. Amani is the breadwinner in their family, and Matt appears to be a stay-at-home dad. I think Amani's domineering personality is partly because she's competitive with Matt. When Eni and Matt crossed a boundary for Amani, she got extremely upset, and made them feel like they'd done something wrong. This ended up being the impetus for them to establish some rules for their relationship, which should have happened already, but better late than never. Amani said she felt like things were starting to go more in favor of Matt, which proves to me that she is competing with him for Eni's affections. Amani is keeping score, saying that Eni introduced Matt as her boyfriend, and she kissed Matt first when they all met. Amani's motives might be less about being with Eni, and more about her underlying issues with Matt. After Amani found out about Eni and Matt's tryst, she became more defensive and more jealous. She started creating conflict, first by saying that Eni wasn't taking her seriously in the relationship, and then by throwing a tantrum at a winery where they were all enjoying dinner. Eni tried to console Amani, but she said in a confessional that Amani's reaction scared her. When Eni ended up telling Amani that she didn't care about Matt, and that she loved Amani more than she loved Matt, Amani looked relieved. Despite feeling insecure about Matt and Eni, Amani sighed and said, "That's kind of the problem," when Eni said she had more feelings for Amani than Matt. Amani seemed almost giddy to hear that Eni had stronger feelings for her than she did for Matt. She didn't tell Matt for a couple of days. I tried to give Amani Jlassi the benefit of the doubt. I really did. On the surface, she seemed like the free-spirited Tunisian woman swept up in an unconventional love story, trapped between her American husband Matt and his long-standing friend turned something more, Chantel. I told myself she was just navigating cultural adjustments, juggling expectations, and trying to find her voice in a messy, emotionally fraught dynamic. But now, I've changed my mind. After watching this week's episode of 90 Day Fiancé, The Other Way, I can't unsee it anymore. Amani is not just overwhelmed. She's orchestrating chaos. And it's starting to look like she's intentionally hurting Matt. Let's break it down. The so-called throuple storyline started off with curiosity and, I'll admit, a weird fascination. 3 adults consenting to a relationship model outside the norm? Fine. But there's a difference between exploring polyamory with intention and using it as a weapon. Amani claims she's all about openness, honesty, and modern love, but the way she's been behaving says otherwise. It feels like she's using the idea of a throuple as a smokescreen to get exactly what she wants: power, attention, and, if we're being brutally honest, a little revenge. Remember the scene where Matt poured his heart out, saying how confused and hurt he was by how close Amani and Chantel had gotten? His voice cracked when he said he felt like a guest in his own marriage. And what did Amani do? She smiled. Smiled. Not out of joy, not from affection, but in that smug, knowing way that made it feel like his emotional unraveling was a game she was winning. That's not the behavior of someone lost in the complications of love, that's someone who enjoys the spectacle of control. Let's rewind to the origins of this triangle. Amani met Chantel after her wedding to Matt. According to Matt, the idea of even entertaining another romantic connection was something they never discussed until Chantel came into the picture. And yet, here we are, just months into the marriage, with Amani inviting Chantel on their couples retreat, making decisions without Matt's input, and sharing intimate moments in front of him like he's an awkward third wheel at his own dinner party. There's something deeply manipulative about the way Amani frames her actions. She cloaks everything in phrases like "I'm just being true to myself and this is my journey." But when your journey is steamrolling the person who married you with full trust and love, that's not authenticity, it's betrayal wrapped in boho chic catchphrases. And let's talk about Chantel. Is she part of the problem? Sure. She's no innocent bystander. But unlike Amani, Chantel doesn't seem to hide behind pretenses. She's direct. She says what she wants. She's clear that her interest in Amani is real, and that her loyalty to Matt is conditional. At least she's honest. Amani, on the other hand, speaks in riddles, dodges questions, and keeps everyone emotionally off balance. It's no coincidence that every time Matt tries to establish a boundary, Amani pushes it. When he said he needed space, she brought Chantel over for dinner. When he asked for one-on-one time, she scheduled a group yoga session. Even the way she affectionately touches Chantel in front of him feels designed to provoke. And while some may argue she is just being free or unapologetically herself, I think there's more going on here. This isn't about freedom. It's about domination. I can't shake the feeling that Amani never truly wanted to be married in the first place. Or if she did, it was for the wrong reasons, like securing a visa.